how to prove that municipalities are bound by the Constitution. Beyond the fact that constitutions are self-executing, bring in their charter. Most municipalities, state of, village of, county of, town of, are their own political subdivision or their own home rule unit. According to Ballantyne's Law Dictionary, third edition, 1968, a home rule is basically the power of a local self-governing conferred upon municipalities by constitutional provision. So when you look into their charters and it says that they are a home rule unit, automatically they're bound by the constitutional provision, because the Constitution is what confers them or grants them the ability to engage in their private affairs. Without the power of the Constitution, they cannot engage in the things that they're doing. And who confers that power? The people. So for instance, here's an example of a charter. It will have a resolution. It clearly cites the Constitution in it. The Constitution is a founding document. They can have their police departments, their ordinances, all they want. It's not constitutional. It's dead. And also, this ties into the importance of denying the employee status. A home rule unit is its own entity, and you are presumed to be part of that entity unless you claim otherwise. They might want to use your residency status and your zip code and all that. But speak up. If they're bringing you in as a defendant, they have the heavier burden of proof. Deny that employee status. In my experience, it's sufficient to remove the presumption that you belong to their resolution of their private political subdivision, their own home rule unit, and bring their charter into evidence that they're their own private entity. The good part about it is, oftentimes, it has the seal of the state in it, and that seal is self-authenticating according to the rule of evidence. Right there. Gives you the charter number as an evidence of existence of a separate entity from you. And if you have your own entity, even better. Just make sure that it's not registered under theirs. Put these things to use. After getting their charter and putting it into evidence, demonstrate material facts that, hey, look, there's a separation here, and that these entities on a foundational level, because their founding document is their charter, and that founding document that is their charter is based off of something that holds it up, that is the Constitution. Once you've put that evidence in, don't stop there. Take it a step further. You know how in any court cases, when they bring cases against you, whereas you're the defendant and you're trying to fend off the claims, they love using your records against you, no matter how meritless it is. Even if you know it has no standing, you have not entertained the fact that it has no standing in the past, they will bring it up. Better yet, if your record is clean and you cannot relate to that, think about your credit report. Credit report has details of your characteristics and your impulsive nature when it comes to spending. And that says a lot about you. And that is why credit checks are done. in order for alleged creditors to give you credit when they want to do business with you. You go into this courts, it's all business. The lack of better term, they don't give a fuck about how you feel. They look at your credit worthiness. That credit worthiness is your alleged criminal history. And they will use it against you. But guess what? It's a double-edged sword. Since you've established through their charter that they're their own self-governing entities, and that whoever is bringing claim against you, or whoever you're bringing claim against, if you're the complainant, whoever that party is, you're going to prove that they're an employee of that entity. And each employee has an employee file. It serves the same thing as a credit report, or you can use it in the same manner as they use your criminal history. And within each file of these employees are one of two things. There are many things, but as of now, we're looking at the complaints. General public, since they're the ones who granted them this power to act as their own home rule, they, according to the constitutional principles, were mandated and obligated to create mediums for publics to enforce right of grievance and redress in an internal manner. So there's this thing called complaints that they have. Look into their complaint files. Whatever security guards or police of any municipalities that stops you at any given moment, regardless of whether that man or woman put handcuffs on you or created any charges against you, if you feel the slightest amount of fuckery with them, or even if you don't, even if you just walk past them, you say hi, you smile, see their name, do research on them and hold that in file, because a time may come where you will need it, because they do the exact same thing against you. Get a copy of their file, and within it, look for the complaints. The complaint for each of these employees demonstrates their tendencies and their characters. Now, granted, this is an internal thing whereby they get one of their lieutenants or sergeants to make a final determination and whatnot. And oftentimes they will do things in a manner that favors them. But you might be surprised what you will find about what the general public are saying and what they themselves are doing against each other. These people really don't like each other that much. They have internal conflicts. Sometimes you will see lieutenants creating a detrimental report out of a complaint that one of the public has made against an employee. You will even see a chief of police creating a complaint against a fellow employee. It doesn't have to be the public that initiates this internal complaint. A fellow employee can do the same against a fellow employee. That can be used as evidence of their character. And interesting enough, there's a very good chance that you might find within their file a consistent situation that deals with what you are dealing with as a defendant or as a complainant. And you can bring their internal file as an employee into the equation. Now keep in mind, when you create claims against them, you always want to do it on both ends. You want to bring claim against them in their public capacity and private. Their public capacity is the fact that they've been granted authority to act under that home rule in a constitutional manner. And their file is an existence of their credibility on record. Anything otherwise, that constitutional principle that they're permitted to function under as a home rule, is a personal thing. And that's where you sue them in a personal capacity. So you can bring things out to their detriment on all ends. I mean, the personal aspect is self-explanatory. The public part is their file. They have files. Look into it and put it to use. Granted, since most documents like these are policy-based, you're probably going to have to attack the policy or try to use it as efficiency for policy one way or the other. But it does not have to be limited to policy. It does not have to be limited to policy. You can use these complaints as evidence of character and bad faith. Here's an example of the chief of police of a municipal police department making a report against his subordinate. Right here. Name of complainant, chief of police, name of person you are complaining about, a fellow employee. So find things that will incriminate them, because it's your substantive right to use it for your case. And I'm telling you, you will be surprised by the things you will find out. Conduct unbecoming of an officer committed an act that would bring discredit to the department. See attached. What is that act? What is that act? And by the way, it's an affidavit. August 31st, 2020, I was made aware of a Facebook post by a person with the screen name, whatever, stating that a Calumet City police officer told her at the conclusion of a traffic stop, meaning in an alleged official capacity. Alleged official capacity. Of course, traffic being a commercial revenue activity. But the allegations here is, or the presumption here is, he's functioning in an official capacity. It's a presumption. So the chief of police is complaining about this guy who is his underling. And keep in mind the maxim of superior responded or something like that, whereby the superior is responsible for the actions of his subordinates. And according to what he got from the information from the public, his underling made a statement that goes like this: you see what happens when you comply, you don't get shot. Implying that if she had not complied with the officer, she would have been shot. Now, this is not the public making this complaint. This is the chief of police saying this. If under any circumstance you look into this guy's file and you come across him and you basically say you resisted an arrest or refuse to identify, even though in order for a demand for identification to occur, there has to be a reasonable expectation of a crime committed, being committed, or is about to be committed. But they like bringing meritless charges. Say you meet this guy, you can use the chief of police. This is the guy who grants him the power under that department of that home rule unit to function. He can bring this complaint brought by his pops, his big daddy, as admissible evidence of his bad faith and well-known character under his file. That the chief of police is saying that this guy always implies that he's going to basically murder people and he's not being professional. In an attempt to ascertain the identity of the victim, I was provided a video/audio recording admissible evidence of the incident. The audio is extremely clear, admissible evidence. In this incident, it appears that during the course of a normal traffic stop, in which the officer was writing the victim a ticket, normal stuff you do for people that's presumed to be under your jurisdiction, the officer did in fact say, see what happens, you didn't get shot. That's what happens when you comply. Key here is this bad faith of his character, where he implies under his official duties as an agency of the state to engage in commercial revenue, that if people choose not to do business with them, they will basically murder them. So if they come in charge, if this guy come and charge you with resisting arrest, you have a reasonable expectation to behave a certain way based on his records and based on the Constitution also. This would just be the icing on the cake. And guess another beautiful part. Since this is created by the chief of police of this entity, it does not necessarily have to be an encounter with this specific guy who the complaint is being made against by the chief of police. It can be any other employee since the chief of police has set this expectation. So this is now a culture because this employee is functioning under this guy's capacity. And any other fellow employee has the same corporate intent and goal. And it's been demonstrated, according to public record, that things of this nature happen. Although the chief of police did bring it up, but you have a reasonable expectation based on this to expect every other employee to behave the same way. It's really just that simple. And even better, if you come across this guy. So you just don't know what you will find. Things like this. Look into it. Put it to use. Now granted, since it's all private, they're not showing you whether they suspended him, whether there was a disciplinary action. But guess what? Whoever gave this information with the admissible evidence that the chief of police affirmed, whoever gave it to him, that man or woman had the power to push this situation forward. The onus of the chief of police was just to quell the uneasiness, to play along with it and say, okay, all right, we created a complaint. But that's where it ended. It's not his responsibility to go beyond this. It is you, the people. It's your responsibility. Believe it or not, evidence like these exists out here. You are the only one that will put it in its proper place, because they're not going to do it. So find their files and look into it, and you'll be surprised by what you find.